And welcome to Nerds Talker. I am Adolfo Ferranda at Nerds Talker at @Ferranda on Twitter with my co-host and good buddy.
Greg Glory, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Soccer Media Network. Hey, buddy, glad to get on again. It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, totally. This is like my new rig too. I know you people can't see, and for you people listening, I'm on my new MacBook Pro here, fully dongled out. So I have all these USB dongles for the Rode microphone and for my Logitech webcam, HD slice lens webcam. So let's see how this goes, eh?
Yeah, sounds good. I readjusted my mic to more in front of me. It was a little bit hollow, I thought, the last time. So using the Samsung Go Mic Connect again, and I'm gonna probably be
cool.
ending my series with that now, and then I'm gonna go on to this new thing I'm gonna talk about in a little bit here. So
very nice.
On Indiegogo. So
anyway. Yeah, man. So I went to a really cool event. I'll start off and talk about that. Something called the CMD-D Conference. I don't know. I've never really been one to think much about automation in terms of like just my computer usage or my workflow. I've thought about like productivity kind of stuff. And this is one of those like things that I've just been woefully lacking and sort of ignoring, sort of the ostrich with the head in the sand for a long time. But for whatever reasons, I was listening. I'm a big fan of the Mac Power Users podcast. It's a wonderful podcast by Katie Floyd and David Sparks. And they do this. They were promoting this conference, right? And the conference is all about automation and was put together, really the lead of it was a gentleman called Sal Segway, and forgive me if I'm butchering his name. I've never been able to pronounce it all that well. He's a legend in the Apple community. He worked for Apple for a couple decades as their automation sort of champion, right, inside the company, and was sort of one of the creators or forefathers of an application called Automator, which comes for free on all of your Macs. I highly recommend you open it up, fire up this application, and give it a go. Greg, have you played with automation at all?
You know, only Ifttt,
right?
Right. I mean, that's the easiest way, right? Because I think what is still my issue, and maybe you could educate me now further now that you went to this conference, is connectivity between services.
Right. So Ifttt is sort of like a second generation, I would say, if not more, of this sort of progression, right? So I'm sort of going back in time here in a way with this conference, because when you're playing with the core language, well, the really great scripting language built into the Mac OS for free is something called AppleScript, right? And I took a full day course. The first day of the conference, for those who paid for the workshop, was a course on AppleScript. And with that, in conjunction with, if you choose to use Automator to make it a little easier, it's kind of a front-end app for all of this, you can do all kinds of whiz-bang, amazing stuff, whatever your imagination sort of wants on your Mac itself with certain applications, all the built-in Apple applications, basically. And several external applications, things like the Adobe Suite, for instance, and some other sort of things. What you're talking about is web automation, right? With Ifttt, which is sort of another progression to this whole thought. Obviously, things need to happen now with the web in terms of automation, and with our mobile devices, those have been sort of woefully lacking. As of recent, though, we've seen things like applications called Worflow, which Apple purchased, now owns, which is on iOS, which is really a really cool app. And then, like you said, things like Zapier or Ifttt for web sort of interplay with each other, but not the greatest, not the most powerful stuff yet. But getting there. And I think things are going to only get better based on the sort of things that I've seen at this conference. Day one was a really amazing teacher, this guy named Ray Robertson. He's a principal for Automated Workflows Incorporated. He's like a master AppleScript guy. He did this scripting boot camp for several of us, and ran all kinds of amazing sort of examples and showed us what we could do with AppleScript. I was completely blown away. He had a full automation stack where he was creating graphics on the fly with Illustrator and all these other type of applications, InDesign, things like that. That you could workflow and have all saved to, different various folders on your machine, have them named whatever, date stamped, whatever, archived and separated in different folders, all through one little script that would do all of this magic for you. It was pretty amazing when you think of things like in terms of a big, let's say, design house that needs to do this kind of thing in the perhaps hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images or something like that. And what you quickly realize is that a lot of these guys come in, they write these Apple scripts for these, top companies, and they've just saved themselves a ton of money of what would in the past be sort of, this manual, very labor intensive and expensive process. So it's really cool. Now, I've wrote a couple basic Apple scripts after the conference because I'm on such a buzz with it right now.
Nice.
Where, like, for my development environment, I have to fire up some like GitHub, and then I have my Tower, which is front end to GitHub. I have my IDE, which I use RubyMine and some other stuff. And all these other things sort of. So I wrote the script for it, and I just double click on the script, and all the stuff just kind of flies up, and my whole development environment now is in my right there, ready to go. Whereas this used to be sort of a time process of doing this, figuring that, getting this and that together. So it's really cool in that terms of, you could all think of it how it applies to you in your life. And like I said, your imagination's kind of the limit at this point.
Oh, yeah, I had a question for you. So do you, you talked more from a developer standpoint, which you are, right? But like for the everyday person, do you see these type of tools imaginable?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, especially if you're doing things like, if you still have some sort of local music sort of library or some sort of local photo type of situation, or some backing up type of thing that you need to do, or even for the small business owner, if you're still doing this in any capacity locally on your computer, you should really look into Automator and AppleScript or some sort of automating solution. There are some really great applications out there for you to install. Things like Hazel is one, Keyboard Maestro. There are several of these things, LaunchBar, Alfred, that sort of give you the sort of nice front end GUI to sort of start doing this automation type of stuff without you having to fiddle with AppleScript in any kind of way or do any sort of coding. But I would say if you want to learn any type of coding or scripting in any way, AppleScript is a really nice, gentle, introductory way to do it. And for the small business owner who is someone who's proficient in Excel, for instance, they could really play with this. I mean, just to open some windows and fiddle with your Excel files. There's all kinds of integrations, sounds. It does you can do some verbal command stuff now with the dictation and things like that. So yeah, I think long answer to your question. Yeah, I think for the general user, you could do this, but as we obviously the transition is to move to mobile devices, right? And what Sal Segway sort of previewed through the OMNI group and these applications that they have called like OMNI Outliner, OMNI Graphel. They have a suite of amazing applications, and what they've created is this library where you can hook into via JavaScript, hook into this library that they have, and you'll be able to do this incredible sort of automation on your mobile devices. Now I'm holding up an iPhone. I saw some amazing stuff that he did via this, which has been undoable, if that's even a word at this point, right? And this is the first step, the preview, I think, of foray. What we're seeing, and Apple approved this, letting the OMNI group do this with their applications on iOS. So I think we're getting a really preview into what a lot of applications will be able to do in the future is some really intense, very cool automation via apps, and via your mobile devices, which is going to be, it's super exciting to see how this is progressing in our lifetime.
I see. So what you're saying really is that for the everyday person, non-developer or whatever, they could get a little bit creative with this and actually take some manual operations that maybe they're doing on their mobile and actually automating it into the cloud or doing something like that, right?
Well, like you said, for the mobile part, like you said, right now they're pretty much stuck with, like you said, Ifttt, Zapier, and something like Workflow, right? If they have that particular application. It's not, we're still in this weird transitionary period where we're still working with these desktop machines, but we're also increasingly dependent on these mobile devices, which are very dependent on cloud, right? And network connection and not really local storage all that much. So we're in these two different paradigms, but we're right in between right now, and we're kind of tilting over a lot more in terms of automation and productivity in the mobile device. We're just baby steps into that right now, whereas it's very mature on the desktop level and computer level, the workflow sort of technology at this point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. So maybe what Social Greg needs to do here is go on a AppleScript diet for a little bit and learn some things. Huh?
It's definitely worth playing around with. In my opinion, I'm having a lot of fun with it. But there were what was so great about this CMD-D conference is also it felt like an old sort of Mac user group meeting. I don't know if you've ever been to any of these like little sort of nerd meetings, although they called it a conference, it was a very intimate affair. And what was nuts about it were the people you had access to. There was, like I said, Ray Robertson. Sal Segway himself is worth the price of admission, in my opinion. He's like a legend in the technology world. There was Allison Sheridan, who is from Podfeet Podcasts, and then David Sparks was there as well from Mac Power Users, and John Welch, who was System 7 Pro and Rexshell, DOS Batch, OS2 Batch, VBA, all this guy admin. Shelley Brisbane, who's author of like 15 books on a slew of stuff and has a long history in tech media. Jason Snell, who's a lead editor at Macworld for a decade. He was and now he writes at Six Colors and has hosted Mac Break Weekly with Leo Laporte and done work with him. John Pugh is there, who's one of the creators of AppleScript, which was such an honor to meet him. And Brett Terpstra took the place of Andy Anako. And Brett Terpstra is known for making this famous application called Marked for all you people that use Markdown out there, right? Primarily writers and stuff. It's kind of an elegant, quick way of not having to write HTML and do really quick formatting with this sort of really basic sort of a syntax, if you will. Much easier than HTML, if you can even imagine that. I'm an HTML guy, so it's hard for me to wrap my head around even using it. But, Brett's an awesome dude, so you should all try it out. But you had access to all these people. That was like one of the things I couldn't believe was like, it's such an intimate affair that you're all like in close proximity all the time that you can just talk to all of these guys. They're just like hanging out, right? You have access to them. Whereas at the big conferences that we go to, that's typically not the case.
Yeah. How long has this conference been around?
This is the first one. This is the first one.
So I guess they're filling a gap, which Macworld always used to bring us Mackies together, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great observation. Yeah. So that's exactly it. After I talked to Sal about, I was just on such a high because I haven't been such a cool conference in so long that he's like, yeah, I think, I've been out of the game for a while because, he left Apple. They kind of had a mutual separation there, parting of ways. And he was basically in the caves hiding out for a while, and then he came out working with the OMNI group, right, and came out with this crazy amazing platform that they're releasing for automation on iOS, which is incredible. And then he puts together this automation conference, and everyone was salivating, chomping at the bit to get in, and everyone was on a total high to be there. I mean, the attendees there were pretty remarkable themselves. I met the creator of Hazel, who also, like I said, Brett Terpstra was there. He's creator of all these amazing Markdown apps and other scripts and things. I met a creator of Keynote was there as well, and several other really serious developers from all over the world were pretty much there and all over the country. And I mean, this was really, a deep level of talent there. So you could feel something was really getting started, and I'm sure they're going to do it again because it was smashing success. And Paul Kent, who is the creator of Macworld, was there. He helped with this whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really him too. And yeah, so it was fantastic.
Yeah, I met Paul Kent when I was doing SF New Tech, where they were doing this kind of startup area in Macworld. I think almost last year, if I remember, of Macworld. And yeah, he was a great guy. I mean, I think, he was sad to part ways with Macworld because he really believed in the conference. And I don't know if he said anything about that, but I mean, I think that I'm glad he's kind of back in, promoting Mac.
No, I think that's more like ancient history that we look back on fondness with those things. But I mean, I can see why Macworld sort of went the way it did. You know what I mean? It was kind of a natural sort of progression, and this this thing that's being born, if you will, is a really cool thing, and I think it's just going to get cooler and cooler.
Well, so, there's a lot of things where I'm looking at least the way I even learn now online, where I pick up a YouTube video and pick up bits and pieces of someone's post, kind of like what we're doing here, right? Where I'll pick up a bit and piece and kind of store that away in my my bank. But explain these user groups, which is really kind of old school, I think. The feel of that for people probably who do most of their learning and picking up on YouTube. What's the feel of this, and why you thought it was kind of important?
Yeah, I think my observation really was, for me, it was some sort of calling. I don't know what it was. I saw this thing and I felt like for whatever reason, I saw the group of people, and which is funny because these are not like 20-something millennial startup kids. These are like old school, seasoned Apple, from the beginning, Apple type folk, and I've always really looked up to people of age because they have so much wisdom, right? And to leverage that wisdom for yourself can really propel you in life. And it was really cool. There was a level of maturity there and genuine excitement about, they knew what was coming, which was so, the irony of it all is like you felt the excitement, sort of like the early Mac, of what can be done in the mobile and in the cloud in terms of workflow, right? So, I mean, that's what was really exciting about it, is that to see how the early stages we are in this. We're at the very beginning, man, of all the cool automation stuff that we want to do. I mean, think about our process now, right? Let's say for the podcast, for instance, right?
Sure.
We have to record this, and then perhaps we download the video. Maybe not. Maybe it goes automatically to YouTube. But there also needs to be, right, some social stuff that needs to go out. So we need a certain particular message that needs to go out for Facebook versus Twitter could be optimized differently, right? Versus whatever else, And then there's an audio version of this podcast which needs to be extracted from the video, perhaps uploaded to SoundCloud or whatever your particular thing is, right? And then we need to add metadata on all of those things to some extent, right? Descriptions, whatever. If you have advertising type of stuff. So you see where I'm getting at, right? And a lot of this is done in browser, right? And a lot of it sort of ends up in some sort of cloud form of some sort, or consumed. So right now it's kind of kludgy. We have these sort of weird hooks with Ifttt, right? So if we do a post in Facebook, it automatically goes out to Twitter, sort of, right? But it's not exactly optimized. I mean, we could optimize it better for Facebook only versus Twitter, right? Instead of the same message going out. Wouldn't it be cool if you could just do all that, right, in a more sort of elegant type of way? I'm sure there are some solutions out there to do something serious, but I'm just giving sort of a rough example of how in our scenario this works, right? You can think of it in terms of your scenario, your business or whatever your particular thing is, your family or whatever it may be. That's where it sort of breaks down in the cloud or the web, if you will, right? Locally, you can do a lot of this powerful stuff on these desktop machines, like I'm saying, but there's a lot of opportunity in the cloud for workflow and automation and apps talking to each other much more elegantly, and devices, right? Leveraging that and moving things around on your device or the cloud view in different folders, whatever your particular storage solution is, whether it be Dropbox or whatever, Evernote or whatever. It should be that should be a moot point.
So like with this automation, I guess there's the AI part of it as well, right? Where you could actually maybe even automate some creative processes in this, right?
Yeah, totally. That would be, I could see that as some sort of hook, yeah, to perhaps could optimize whatever you may be doing, whether, I don't know, whatever, improving your process itself or improving whatever bit of the process it is in your workflow, in your funnel or whatever.
Right. Wow. That's great. I know. I'm glad you went. I saw some of your posts and I said, wow, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
so
more to come, guys. I'll have a big breakdown on this whole thing pretty soon.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, that's a great segue to what I kind of want to talk about.
Cool.
I saw an article from Gene Twenge from The Atlantic. Yeah, they have some really cool stuff. And I think this has been talked about before, especially by you, but I kind of wanted to focus on this because you're really into technology and you've really brought up a child in technology here, right? So the article's story is how smartphones destroyed a generation. And it discusses really the change that the iPhone and apps have changed even parenting.
I love this topic. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you could talk all day about this, and I wanted to ask you about that. We come from this kind of desktop starting generation to now mobile, right? Which we've adapted fairly well, I felt. But what about kids who now just know the mobile stuff and really don't really go to the desktop? I mean, let's start talking about that.
Yeah,
and how that's changed your parenting.
Yeah, where I think we're lucky in a sense, Generation X and perhaps a little bit of Generation Y or whatever, is that we lived in a time before the internet itself, right?
True.
So, I mean, granted, we had these computers, these old school, whatever, Ataris and Apple Quadras and these old machines, but the internet connection was terrible. And there was a time we didn't even have internet, right? So we have to do this on cassettes or floppies or, floppy disks and stuff like that. So we were born with patience, right?
Totally.
Whereas they have immediate, it's not only the screen itself, it seems, but like the effectiveness of the content or the game or whatever's coming via the cloud, especially in the interaction too with other people, the immediacy and the endorphin high. And that's a tremendous challenge in terms of self-discipline, right? To pull yourself away from that. And there's some question if there should there even be self-discipline, or should they just be consuming all the time because this is going to be the future and they need to be sort of more native or adaptable to that. And we're fighting, we're Don Quixote in essence, right? Fighting the windmill in this whole scenario. And then I don't know, I'm kind of the camp too, where I see kids, it looks like I can see addiction happening very quickly, right? And not being, because sociologists, who most of these companies hire now, let's face it, for conversions and et cetera, and marketers too, are so effective now in terms of keeping your kid or yourself to transition to convert in some sort of way, that it is extremely challenging to pull yourself away from these type of things. And it's sort of the exception, not really the rule, right? And so it's you got all that stacked against you.
Well, I wanted to ask you, is one thing they brought up in the article, which really gave me a lot of contemplation to think about, is socialization. And what they talked about in the article is a lot of these kids who stay onto the iPad or mobile devices, the idea of actually hanging out with your friends in person in real life, IRL, right? As opposed to hanging out with them virtually is causing maybe some issues, maybe like depression. I think I've heard stories about depression, suicide, obviously teen suicide is a really high rate thing. And that's an interesting thing. I started to contemplate, like, what forces things to come together. And the only thing, or people to come together, especially teens, the only thing I could think of is sports. Right, that requires someone getting together, right? I mean, you need a team to play baseball, you need a team to play football, soccer, that stuff. But other things, you really need that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you know, there's no, you know, film
But
club.
it's biological is the thing. If you allow me here, is like
Yeah, go ahead.
you know,
Yeah.
just like the ape who is shunned from his, you know, pack or tribe or whatever you call it, you know, group, they die. You know, we have to have humanoids, whatever you want to call us, humans. We have to have human interaction, otherwise we die. We simply do. We just, you know,
Sure.
that's what happens on a biological level. When we're off and alone, we only last so long, and then we just go crazy and we die, right? But not only being together in real life, what I've noticed is the quality of being together in real life. I've seen kids hanging out together and they're all staring at the screen, right? Just looking down, staring at the screen, sort of interacting, but being, you know, doing it via the screen, even though you're sitting right next to me.
Right.
So it's an odd situation there as well. And when you bring up the example of sports, really, it's just anything that doesn't require a screen and we're together, right? Sure, sports is one definite sort of reason, but any what are the other reasons to get together, right? And besides maybe a barbecue or something like that, if you're lucky enough to live in a neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, family event, you know, I mean, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, but nowadays, like a lot of people in major metropolitan cities, they don't even know their neighbors. You know what I mean? They don't know who lives upstairs from them. They don't know downstairs from them. And a lot of people, it's a weird time.
Well, you lived in the city, now you moved to the suburbs. Now you could see probably that shift of urban versus suburban life, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and you in the area I live, I've been over to your house. You know, seems it's like a cul-de-sac, so it seems a little bit tighter, right?
Yeah.
As well as probably, you know, the community itself around the school that your daughter goes to. You know, I think if you look at the, you know, maybe we could now step into like the differences in parenting it was without mobile screens. You know, talked to me the other day just about saying that, oh yeah, well, you know, since grandma can't drive, you know, we have to Uber or Lyft or Uber, right?
Right.
That's changed, right? I mean, you know, before that, if that option wasn't there, you'd have to taxi or you go, you get your daughter and grandma together, right?
Yeah.
And coordinate that on the phone or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, that's changed parenting, hasn't
it? Yeah. But like you said, I mean, it's a taxi, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's an overglorified taxi. But yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, for those of you who don't know, my mom does not drive. And so I grew up taking taxis, sometimes by myself too. Like as a little kid, my mom would give me taxi money if I missed a school bus or something like that. You know, it's crazy, you know, latchkeys.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Oh.
But yeah, you're right. You're right. And one of the, you know, there's a fascinating study too in terms of living in cul-de-sac, that the quality of life in terms of like suicide and things like that is like greatly reduced when you live in a cul-de-sac because you're more likely to like know your neighbors and there's this quantifiable type of relation between the two. Although they've also found in cities, tightly knit cities, some of them, where that type of bond happens in things like disasters or emergencies. Like I guess there was no sort of, I hate to say it, but like a better time to feel like you see this togetherness and during times of like 9/11 or Katrina, right? Where these neighbors came together and bonded in a way like they never have before, right? And then when that type of togetherness or that feeling or that need for each other sort of wanes, then you see this sort of connection between your happiness too as well, right? Your connection with others. It's just a fascinating research.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, like here, I still live in the city, so I'm urban, right? I take the bus everywhere I go.
Greg's urban, everyone.
I tell you. Anyway,
bombing subways and stuff. Bombing, I mean spray painting.
Oh my God, let's not go there. We're gonna get cut off YouTube like because of all this. But oops. But you know, what I think about when I'm on the bus, even, you know, the people are just looking down on the screens and, you know, just good morning or something like that. Lack of app. That's really fascinating, right? Because now we have the ability to, okay, we don't have to deal with you.
Yeah.
Mr. I don't want to sit next to you.
Yeah.
Thing, right?
No, it's crazy.
Just my screen elevator.
I was in the elevator the other day and there was this young lady staring at her phone, and there was another guy who wasn't. And I get in, and I notice there's like one floor that's pressed, and I'm going to the lobby, right? So I press the lobby, And then we go to the floor down, whatever, and the one guy gets out. And then I realized, then we get to the lobby, the young lady who was looking at her phone had never pressed the button. And so I look at her and I'm like, hey, you never pressed the button, just FYI. She's like, oh, thanks, you know?
Totally didn't know or understand or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
So yeah, I mean, the distraction world too, you know?
Yeah, no, it's great. So how's I wanted to ask you, let's get off of that subject, but I wanted to, you know, we're pushing 30 minutes pretty soon, but Segway.
Segway, yeah. You know, it doesn't take me up the hills that I want it to. I'm like 180 pounds, you know, roughly 175. And then when I have like a backpack though too, you know, it does get me on flats pretty good. It's not quite fast enough. It doesn't, you know, 10 miles per hour. It's correcting me, which I don't like. But increasingly, I'm seeing a lot more people in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco, riding these things.
Right.
I mean, that's cool for getting around flat areas. I tend to go hill areas, so it's not really practical in that regards for me. But I think for the general consumer in this major city, this would be fine for them, you know, on sidewalks. Certainly is not acceptable to be on streets because it's just not fast enough.
Oh man, well we definitely get some film on this and a review on this, but like you would, yeah, that's right. San Francisco is just so hilly, man.
Yeah. So what's been up with you, man? How's all the camera work and all the social world going?
Good. You know, I've been trying to figure out pieces to put together. I still need to do the piece on what's in our backpack for interviewing, you know, because we did the drone challenge, and it was interesting of how to pack my bag for lightness and portability. And so I'd like to probably do a piece on that. You know, just constantly trying to do other types of films. There's this small studio in Berkeley that I'm attached to now that you know, I'm doing some producing called a She Studio, and it's a women's empowerment network that they're trying to start up right now. Also, another thing, you know, I'll try to do a post on this. I just helped launch a text story based app called Pochi, which is based in Japan, and that's a really, you know, there's other bigger services out there. You know, Hooked is one, which is a text-based story. Basically, you just tap your phone and the lines of the story appear as if it was a conversation between two characters. Cool. And that's a service I helped launch in the United States just recently. But our twist is going to be that we're going to actually pay writers. Eventually the subscription fee. So, you know, the founders will take less, but give back to the people who are creating content. And I thought that was a hooked for me, because I think that's, you know, we gain a lot of content from people, but, you know, how do they eventually get paid in this digital world, right? And so that was one thing that I thought that was a necessary thing that'll be coming out in a future update. But it's in beta right now, and you know, I'd love you guys kind of try it out. We're looking for writers, we're looking for people, but, you know, in the future, you will, as a writer, you have the ability to get paid and get a cut of the subscription fee that you bring in, you know, with the service. So that's another thing that I've kind of been into recently. So
very cool. Yeah. So I got an interview coming up here, you guys, just to let you know, with the author of The Gig Economy. Her name escapes me right now, but that'll be coming up like next week, I believe. So be on the lookout for that. Also, Dreamforce. We have a Dreamforce coming to San Francisco. That's going to be another big event for Greg and myself. Let's see when that is. That is when is Dreamforce?
October.
Dreamforce. Yeah, it's somewhere in October, right?
Yeah.
November. November 6th through 9th in lovely San Francisco. That's the big Salesforce conference. Talk about everything going to the cloud, right? And automation. There's a lot of opportunity there as well. I'll be very interested on the lookout for that.
It's an interesting challenge because Moscone Center in San Francisco here is under renovation. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and Salesforce has a giant building being completed in San Francisco.
That's right. That's about the opening time, right? They were saying for Salesforce building, right?
Yeah, roughly? It's going to be nuts.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so check it out, you guys, at salesforce.com/Dreamforce. That is November 6th through 9th in lovely San Francisco.
Nice. Thank you for all that. It's interesting, the conferences that we've kind of diverged into different types of conferences. And
all kinds of
really
stuff.
Appreciate your productivity stuff. It's really cool stuff. You gave me to think about a lot, man.
Yeah,
so thank you
for sure, everyone. All right, Greg, any final thoughts?
No. I mean, obviously, if you guys like this, subscribe to our channel and, hit the like button below, please. That's how we get some feedback on, are we talking about relevant stuff, or is Social Greg just babbling on as he usually does?
Yeah, everyone, remember, subscribe, do the whole thing on YouTube here. If you're listening, give it the 5 stars or the likes or whatever you're on your particular platform. Or however you're listening to it, and we thank you very much for your time. Again, I am at Ifttt on Twitter, at Nerdstalker on Twitter, Adolfo at nerdstalker.com if you want to email me. And Greg, how do we get a hold of you?
I'm at Social Greg on Twitter, and if you want to get a hold of me directly, Social Greg at nerdstalker.com. I'm glad to interact with you. In fact, it's funny, I do get these emails asking advice on certain things, and I'm happy to give it because it's all about community to us. So
yeah, for sure. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching and listening.
All right. Be careful out there.